Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPaWrites here again, and everybody is talking about the Poison Strand Warlock build in Destiny 2 Lightfall, and for good reason. This thing absolutely slaps and is just way too much fun. I've actually been rocking it a lot, and I have to admit it's probably my favorite build in the game right now, despite being a Titan main, so that's saying a lot. It's absolutely tremendous. So it all starts with Osteo Strigger and Necrotic Grip, but just a quick update on this build. I am rocking a Vouchsafe Scout Rifle for Unstopped Champions, but you would want to run a special weapon of your choice in something like a raid or dungeon or that kind of activity, especially if you're going in day one raid. So keep that in mind. I'm also rocking Royal Entry just for fun because I wanted to show how good the build was regardless of my other weapons. So you can kind of ignore those and throw in whatever type of weapons you want in your special and heavy slot that you're going to do the most damage or is going to be best for the content that you're taking on. I just wanted to give that warning up front because you might look at my build and look at those two weapons in particular and be like, what the hell is going on? So anyway, it all starts with Osteo Strigger. Got the trait Screaming Swarm, fires a stream of sentient toxic projectiles that track that targeted enemy. This thing is phenomenal for hip firing. It's probably the best hip fire gun in the game in PvE and is just really, really broken right now. Then you've got Toxic Overload, landing a final blow or multiple precision hits, trigger a burst that poisons nearby targets. That's awesome. It's so much fun. And specifically the Osteo Strigger Catalyst, poison final blows return ammo to the magazine. There were times when I was wanting to reload because I thought I would have to, but my magazine was full because I was triggering the reload automatically. So that's very, very good. Then we've got Necrotic Grip, which has the grasp of the Devourer, damaging combatants poisons them, dealing increasing damage over time with your melee. Defeating a poison combatant spreads the condition. So, some things to note with the Strand build. Your melee grapple actually counts as a melee when you are grappling into them and meleeing them for the Necrotic Grip. It also counts when you're using mods. So it does count as a melee for a lot of those different interactions, which is what makes this build so special because you can melee grapple and then spread poison. The other thing is that with the Mindspun Invocation aspect, when you use your grapple, you spawn 3 threadling eggs. So you're getting yourself into danger, but you're spawning those threadling eggs and you're doing a bunch of damage, and it just works out very, very well. You also have your Weaver's Call, so casting a Rift will weave 3 more threadlings and deploy any that you have perched. That's really nice. But the other aspect that makes this so good is your Arcane Needle, because you can have up to 3 different attacks with your Arcane Needle, and all 3 of them have the ability to poison enemies. So you can save them, you can do them one at a time, you can spam them into a group. This is tremendous. It feels like with this build, I constantly have my abilities back, despite not having the best stats on my Warlock. I've done a lot of armor chasing on my Titan, so I have really good stat rolls, but on my Warlock, not so much. I've kind of neglected him in the past. So that makes it more impressive that I get the cooldowns right for my abilities with this build. The fragments I'm running are Thread of Evolution, so threadlings travel farther and deal additional damage. The additional damage is really what I'm looking for because I am spawning them pretty frequently. We've got Thread of Fury, damaging targets with a Tangle, grants melee energy. Again, I want my melee and my grapple as often as possible. Dealing damage generates grenade energy. I felt like I had my grapple all the time because of this. And then you've got Thread of Warding, picking up an Orb of Power, grants Woven Mail. So essentially, I'm going to have Woven Mail all the time because of that, which is not something you'll see all the time on the Warlock. And I can really be a little bit more aggressive when I'm leaping into danger because of that. Now, again, with the grapple, you may not want to do that as often in a contest mode raid or Grandmaster Nightfall, but the interaction is there. So if you want to, it's still a viable option and you can build up your defenses in order to survive that. You just have to be a little bit more careful. We've also got a bunch of mods that I'm rocking personally, which is Powerful Friends. We got Kinetic Targeting and Kinetic Siphon. Because it's technically a kinetic weapon, Osteo Strigger really benefits from those, and you generate a ton of orbs by using the Kinetic Siphon. So that's really, really good. You've also got Kinetic Loader and then Heavy Handed. I do like Heavy Handed a lot because I feel like I'm generating and doing power melee powered final blows pretty much all the time. So I'm generating as many orbs as possible, and that is a big key with the builds currently. You want to generate a ton of orbs. Then you've got other things that you can toss on, like damage resists. I do rock those all the time, especially a melee damage resist, and that's because if I'm grappling into danger, I'm often going to get meleeed by an enemy who is up close, and I want to make sure I survive because of that. I also have the emergency reinforcement, and that's just because I do like to try to keep up my survivability when I'm grappling in and out all the time. I know it's not always going to work out for you, but I just personally like that, and it helps me stay alive, which is harder to do on my Warlock for me personally than it is on my Titan at times. So that's just what I personally like to do, but you can kind of adjust that as you want. These aren't really make or break for the build, they're just personal preferences because I do like to rock them and because of my play style with this build. So that's just something to keep in mind and something that I like. I often, in like a raid or something like that, will change out my melee damage resist for a sniper damage resist, but that's if I'm going to be less aggressive with that build. Then we've also got kinetic weapon surge. That's in case the surges are active. So your kinetic weapon is doing more damage all the time. That's very, very nice. I love that. That's really the main armor charge weapon that mod that I'm using. We've got stasis holster void holster, because I was rocking void weapons. And so that does help out. It reloads my stuff over the course of time. So definitely always rock a holster for your heavy weapon if you are looking to have it reloaded when you need it. And I think the holster mods are probably the best ones in the game right now, the most underrated maybe even. And also I'm rocking Absolution because it reduces all ability cooldowns each time you pick up an orb of power. Because I'm generating so many of them, I can kind of spam my super a little bit more and use it on cooldown because I'm generating so many orbs. Next thing up, we got utility kickstart as well as distribution. I'm using my Rift fairly often as well. I'm generating those threadlings, and that's really kind of the combo. Essentially what I like to do, I will grapple melee into danger, get a kill or two, start spraying a little bit with my Osteo. If I get in trouble, take some damage, I'll pop my Rift, the threadlings will jump out, and then I can use my melee to finish anything off, back away a little bit, heal if I need to, but then I can kill a couple enemies with poison, spray down with my Osteo, and I can rinse repeat the cycle all over again because I'll start having either another melee ready or grapple ready, and I can jump back into danger. So really that's the gist of this build, and the reason it's so much fun is because the grapple is really something special when you're able to grapple melee consistently and run into enemies without much of a worry. So it just makes this build a ton of fun, and I absolutely love it. Again, there's some things you might have to switch up and change around a little bit when you're going into a day run contest mode raid, but I imagine once we have the raid fully available on Sunday, I think this will be a very viable build for that, especially because you can use the grapple more defensively, and if you have multiple players who are using Strand, you can use their tangles and whatnot to grapple freely. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But overall, yeah, I love this build. I can't take it off. I'm very excited to update it as I get additional better weapons and we get additional Strand fragments and aspects in the future. But for now, I am really thrilled with this build. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, helps me out tremendously. Shows you want to see more Destiny 2 content. Obviously, I've been throwing up a ton of builds, ton of different guides, and all that kind of good stuff for you guys. And I've been absolutely loving Lightfall lately, so I hope you have as well. My name is Jopa. I hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.
A shipment of medical supplies from the city is en route.